Greetings, humans. You have entered the Command Zone, your destination for all aspects of Elder Dragon Highlander. Enjoy your stay.
That was one of our best ones ever. Come on, don't
Play the
lie.
movies. Hey, what's up, everybody? You're listening / watching the Command Zone podcast. I'm your host, Jimmy Wong.
How's it? It's Josh Lee Kwai.
We are now directly in the middle of Commander Precon season, which means that
We're at the end.
That's right. We are nearing the end of Commander Precon season. Boy, what a season it's been, Josh. Looking back.
You're right. It is sort of the middle. We're at the end of our deck upgrades. This should be the fifth one that comes out.
Which is really exciting because this is a really cool deck that we're about to look at now. The lead singer of this deck has been spoiled for a while, but this is our quick upgrades guide. So if you have bought the Precon and are looking to take 10 cards out and put 10 cards in, then this is the guide to go to. This is a way to take that deck and tune it up just a little bit, and you can take this right into a game and do pretty well, to be honest. Yeah,
we're going to be talking about the ABZAN Symbiotic Swarm, the ability counters deck. It's really interesting. This is, again, one of the decks, I'd say this and the Mutate deck are the ones that kind of harken towards the main set more than the other three.
Yeah.
So, obviously, we're going to be talking about a new deck. If you want to pick up this Precon, any of the other Precons, any cards from the main set, Ikoria Lair of Behemoths, anything at all really that's Magic related, please go on over to cardkingdom.com/commandzone. If you use that affiliate link when you buy any of your Magic products, singles, anything at all, you're going to buy that stuff anyway. If you just use the affiliate link when you do, you really are supporting this show, game nights, all of our content. We do want to say, with the COVID crisis going on, Card Kingdom is facing reduced operations.
Operations.
Yeah, so please check their website to make sure that they're going to be able to fulfill your order in the time that you want to, because shipping and stuff has been affected, obviously. That is, if you're watching this now, hopefully not hopefully, but I mean, hopefully COVID crisis is going to be over sooner rather than later. And if you're watching at that point, then Card Kingdom is going to be the fastest no matter what. In fact, they're probably the fastest right now too, because everybody's kind of shut down. So
yeah. And your support does mean everything to Card Kingdom, to us as well. This is obviously a time where everyone's running into a bit of trouble and hardship, so we do appreciate it. And another sponsor of the show, as always, is UltraPro. They've been with us through thick and thin, and this is definitely the thick of it right now.
That's true.
But they make amazing playmats. They make the sleeves that go on your cards. They make the dice. They make the deck boxes, and they really do create everything that really brings you into the world of the game. And that, to me, is one of the best parts about Magic, is playing a deck, getting everything out, and feeling like you are really the commander.
And another way to support all of our content is directly if you go to patreon.com/commandzone. You get all kinds of cool perks like chatting with Jimmy and I each and every day on our Discord server. You get to see game nights a day earlier than everybody else. Also, we shout out one lucky patron every single episode. This episode is dedicated to
Ethan Pye.
Ethan, you rock.
You rock. And Ethan actually is at the Discord tier. So, Ethan, we'll hope to see you on the Discord very soon. We do have a lot more time now to peruse those boards, which is great.
And we also want to say really quickly here that we know it's a rough time financially and economically for a lot of people out there. And Patreon support or even ordering Magic cards might not be something that you feel you can do right now. Obviously, a lot of people getting, laid off or reduced hours at their jobs. Something you can do to still support our content if you're so inclined is just give us a comment.
Yeah, leave a rating on the podcast app that you listen to us on.
Yeah, just follow us on Twitter or Instagram. Hit the subscribe button. Those are things that cost nothing and do help the show still.
Yeah, if you're watching this right now and haven't hit the subscribe button, please just click it. Really easy, and you can hit the little notification bell so you can get alerts as to when all of our Commander content is coming out, because we are not slowing down here.
Yeah, we still got set reviews for both sets. There's a lot still left to do, so you're not going to want to miss it. All right, let's get into the upgrade guide, the budget upgrade guide for this ABZAN Symbiotic Swarm deck. As with the other ones, we're going to recommend 10 cards to put in, 10 to take out. We're going to stay in a total budget of around $25. And as usual, we're not going to mess with the mana base. Again, the mana base will work. It will be fine as is if you have shocks and fetches and stuff like that, obviously put them in the deck.
Put them in, yeah. And the mana bases of these are built out pretty well. All right, let's move on to talking about the new commanders present in the set. And this one is the lead singer, the one on the front of the box. It's Catheral, Aspect Warper. It is a nightmare insect. So
it's scary looking.
Yeah. So this is 2 in ABZAN, or white, black, and green, for a 3/3 legendary creature nightmare insect. Get ready for some word soup. Here we go. When Catheral enters the battlefield, put a flying counter on any creature you control if a creature card in your graveyard has flying. Repeat this process for First Strike, Double Strike, Death Touch, Hexproof, Indestructible, Lifelink, Menace, Reach, Trample, and Vigilance. Then put a +1/+1 counter on Catheral through each counter put on a creature this way. Okay, really quick breakdown how this works. You cast Catheral, or it enters the battlefield in some way. Then you look into your graveyard. If a creature card in your graveyard has flying, congratulations, you can put a flying counter on any creature you control, including Catheral. And then you repeat that process and look through your graveyard to find all of the other keywords that are listed here, and then you can put those counters on any creatures you control, or again, Catheral. And then when you're done with all that, count the number of counters you put on creatures, and then put +1/+1 counters on Catheral for each creature, or each counter that's been put on the creature this way. New mechanic this set, there are now ability keywords that are counters. So you can get something that says flying, it's a little counter, you put it on a card, and the card gains flying, and it counts as a counter on the card. Same goes for all of the other keywords.
It actually is, it reads confusingly, but it's actually pretty simple when you play it. I know online, there's been a lot of discussion that'll be hard to keep track of or whatever. They're actually going to put the little, you remember in Amonkhet how we had the brick counters, and there was like a separate card that came in the booster pack?
A little punch-out card.
Yeah, and so they have punch-out cards with ability counters that come in the booster packs and stuff, and so we've got some here in our hands, and we'll put the little ability counter thing on screen. But anyway, you're going to be able to have these, so it's not actually going to be that hard to keep track of.
Yeah.
And it is really, really cool, because what Catheral does is kind of spread abilities around to your creatures in the manner that you want.
Yeah.
So you get to sort of build your own monsters or monster, and then Catheral also gets bigger. It's actually pretty powerful. We've played the decks again a few times, and whenever Catheral gets cast, even if you only get like 3 abilities and 3 +1/+1 counters, it's like all of a sudden Catheral's like a 6/6. It
with
has like Death Touch.
Yeah.
Something else gets indestructible. Like it definitely plays better than it reads.
Yeah, and it feels like something that you can build either a big go-wide deck and make a lot of little individual monsters, or just straight Voltron and make Catheral a very, very hard-to-remove thing.
And this isn't related to Commander, but I want to say that I got a chance to draft this set, a really early version of it, when I went to visit Wizards like a year ago. Mm-hmm. And that was when I drafted Commander Legends also that same day. And in draft, the ability counters are really, really sweet. It was one of those things where it's just like light bulb and you're like, ding, why haven't they done this before? This is really cool. So anyway, I like the ability counter thing a lot. Moving on to the next, or the other new commander. There's obviously a partner pairing as with all the decks, but the other sort of single new commander that comes in the deck that you could run as the lead singer right out of the box is Tayam. Tayam?
Who knows?
Tayam Luminous Enigma. It's the Riddler. Okay. 1, a white, black, and a green. So 1 in ABZAN for a 3/3. Legendary creature, Nightmare Beast. It says, each other creature you control enters the battlefield with an additional vigilance counter on it.
Whoa.
So all of your creatures that enter the battlefield get vigilance, but kind of forever, not... Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then you can pay 3 and remove 3 counters from among creatures you control. Put the top 3 cards of your library into your graveyard, then return a permanent card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So Tayam doesn't even care what the counters are.
Right.
And you can remove 3 counters from among creatures you control. So it's not 3 from any one creature. If you have 2 +1/+1 counters and a flying counter on different creatures, you can just grab all 3 of those. And then
it Sun Titan something back.
Yeah, I mean, that could be a Evolving Wilds, too, so it can actually ramp you.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that work
very
here.
Powerful.
Very powerful. The big thing here is that you want to have a lot of counters on creatures, obviously, but it's cool because it mills you as well, so it keeps that engine going, and it works well with Catheral, depending on who you're running as the lead singer, because you want cards in your graveyard to trigger Catheral's stuff.
I really like this because it also will synergize with other +1/+1 counter cards that exist in Magic. Because yes, we have Ikoria, the main set, and we have this Precon, but the number of cards in all of Magic that are going to add ability counters is going to be small.
Yeah.
Just because that's all we've got: Ikoria, Lair of Behemoths, and this Precon deck. And so if you open that up with Tayam to +1/+1 counters, and even like, I don't know, there's like weird coin counters and stuff from other
there's
things.
all sorts of random things.
Yeah, you could put those cards in the deck, a Tayam deck, so that seems pretty cool.
Yeah, and Tayam too, in these colors we have Gave, who's literally the +1/+1 counter commander, so these are the colors to get +1/+1 counters as well, so you can definitely find those synergies in there.
That's also known as Gave to everyone.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. Every time I say Gave, my soul dies a little bit. Gave just sounds so much better to
I'm
me.
just going to call it Gave, I don't care what they say.
Okay, the next two cards are the partner pairing, so they have to be played with each other if you decide to make these the lead singers. It's Yannick, Scavenging Sentinel, 2 a green and a white for a 3/3 legendary creature Hyena Beast. It partners with Nakara, Lair Scavenger, who Josh will read in a second. This card has Vigilance, and when Yannick enters the battlefield, exile another creature you control until Yannick leaves the battlefield. When you do, distribute X +1/+1 counters among any number of target creatures, where X is the exiled creature's power. So this is a little interesting. Obviously, when this enters the battlefield, you choose another creature you control until Yannick leaves, and then when Yannick leaves, that creature comes back. However, when you do have Yannick leave the battlefield, you distribute X +1/+1 counters amongst any number of target creatures. Again, you can split this up, where X is the exiled creature's power. So if it's a 5 power creature, when Yannick leaves, boom, 5 +1/+1 counters go across the board.
That's pretty cool. Works with Tayam.
Yes.
I guess works with Catheral a little bit in that Catheral does get +1/+1 counters, so that synergy is in the deck.
And it has Vigilance, so
Yeah.
it's in the graveyard, yeah.
It could have double Vigilance if Tayam's out.
Sick. It actually does tap at that point. It's like the +1/+1 counter.
The negative plus a negative is actually a positive.
Yeah.
All right, the partner is Nakara, Lair Scavenger, 2 and a black for a 2/2 legendary creature, human cleric. Partners with Yannick, of course, has Menace, and says whenever another creature you control leaves the battlefield, if it had 1 or more counters on it, you draw a card and you lose 1 life.
Oh, very nice. So again, if Yannick comes in and gets rid of a creature with +1/+1 counters on it, then you draw cards with Nakara.
And then when Yannick goes away, put more counters out,
on it. When
more
those things
potential
go,
draw from Nakara.
yeah.
Also, Tayam puts counters on every creature you play, Vigilance counters.
Yeah.
Catheral puts a lot of counters out there, gets counters itself. So Nakara just synergizes with everything going on, because Nakara doesn't care if it's a +1/+1 counter or an ability counter or what. Or a charge counter. She doesn't care.
Yeah, Nakara's actually pretty powerful.
Yeah.
Again, draw a card, lose a life. Very, very good cards. Or very good text on the card. Okay, let's break down what this deck is all about in our favorite segment. Stats. Statistic time. All right, so in this deck, there are 21 new cards, and that means that of the rest of them, there are 61 reprints, and 18 of those are basic lands. So overall, 79 reprints. Those added together is 100.
This is a little bit lower amount of new cards than we've seen in some of the other decks. One of them had, I think the Sultai deck had like 29.
Yeah,
which is a little surprising because this is the ability counter commander, and you would think they would need to put more new cards in since ability counters is a new thing. So I'm a little surprised.
Yes,
it's still a higher number than any other Precon from any other year, though.
Yeah,
those usually had like 17, 16.
Yeah. The nice thing is that these cards do work with the history of Magic much better than Mutate does necessarily, because there are less cards that care about
counters.
Mutate. Counters, yeah. So that maybe makes sense there. All right, let's dive into the deeper stats. In the deck, there are 11 cards that ramp you, which is great. 3 of those are lands, so it's like the Myriad Landscape, Corrosive Verge, and the Blighted Woodlands. They're not super efficient later on, but they are very good if you can play them on turn 1, except for Blighted Woodland. Card draw. 6 card draw spells in here, which it's a little low, but it kind of makes sense because there are a lot of other ways to get advantage to your graveyard. So it's kind of like having more cards in your hand.
Oh, that's a really good point.
But 2 of the card draws are conditional. So Satyr, Wayfinder, and Grizzly Salvage only get specific cards when you play them.
They're like kind of card draw. Maybe added together, you might count them as 1.
Yeah, so maybe card draw is closer to 5 than 6.
So card draw is a little light in the deck, it feels like. But I do like what you said about graveyard recursion kind of standing in for a card advantage.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
There are 4 board wipes.
Good.
So that sounds about right. And then 6 sources of single target removal. And these colors definitely have, I think, the greatest swath. Anytime you have white and black, you have access to the best removal in Magic.
Yeah, and you can always add the easy ones like Swords to Plowshares and stuff if you want. I like the board wipes. We've usually seen around 3 in the other decks. 4 is good. a Graveyard Recursion-y deck probably wants a few more board wipes than your average deck too. So
yeah, the stats are good. They're not optimized, obviously. That's something that's up to you all if you want to do. But I think out of the box, it still plays pretty well. And there's a lot of different ways to get an advantage in this game. Slash, you might just kill someone with Catheral and turn 6. So who knows?
Who knows? All right, let's talk about the big one. Everyone's always curious about the deck value. Note, as with the other decks, we are recording this video before the deck has been revealed to the public. So as a result, the prices we're going to refer to, they only take into account the reprints in the deck. Again, there are 61 reprints. We're not going to count the basic lands. Not the new cards, obviously, because we don't know the prices on the new cards. They haven't been revealed yet. And obviously the prices are from previous to the deck being revealed. As soon as the deck is revealed and everybody sees the list, the prices on all the reprints will go down because supply, demand, there's more supply. Yep. All of a sudden the prices go down. So, but still, because we're doing all of the decks from the same vantage point, at least as far as context with each other, the value will at least be consistent.
Yep. So the total price of all of the cards, again, not the new cards, just the reprints, we added up was $91.67.
A little on the low end for these decks.
Yeah, and again, that number's going to drop down. So the sum of all of the $2 plus cards, and there's 16 of them, adds up to $61. And there's only 5 cards that are $5 and up, and those add up to $29.96.
All right, so yeah, this deck is a little on the lower end as far as the reprint value. I mean, straight up, you can probably just say that.
That's just how it goes. But there are some notable reprints, and we usually base this off of cards that are more expensive than Sol Ring, so sort of $4.50 and up. The first one is Karametra, God of Harvests. All of the gods really have had a very high price point over the years just because they are very powerful and great in our format. Karametra is a card that I've liked quite a bit. It helps you ramp. It's very creature-based, but it's a 5-mana legendary enchantment creature god that probably is never going to leave the battlefield.
People don't usually... They have to have exile, and you usually have to have exile enchantment. People may remember Melissa Toruff ran it in the Game Nights episode with Prof. Yep. Very popular episode.
But that was sitting at $12, and that's probably going to drop a bit now, which is great.
All of these decks have the next card, which is awesome. It's Arcane Signet. Ooh. This is just a commander staple, let's be honest. It's going to go in a high percentage of your decks. So it's going to be a lot cheaper now since it's not just getting reprinted in one deck, it's getting reprinted in all the decks. But I think it'll be like Sol Ring where, 4 or 5 months after these decks have been out, it's going to start to climb back up again. And by this time next year or, January of next year, it's going to be right back up probably around the $6-7 range. So pick these up while they're cheap for sure.
Yeah, and this is going to be, again, because there are 5 precons coming out, this is the biggest, because who knows if they're going to be in the other sort of commander cards that are coming out later in the year in the smaller decks that go along with the set. So this is the time to pick it up for sure.
It's $8 right now before it's been revealed that it's reprinted in all the decks.
Yeah, and you can watch the price of Sol Ring does basically the same thing in between the commander product releases. The next is a land, it's Canopy Vista, and this is a great land because it says land, forest plains on it. It's a land that adds green or white, and it enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or more basic lands. So this is actually one of the most powerful, I think, new sets of the dual lands that Wizards has printed because it can come into play untapped, and it has the text forest plains on there. So
cards that have lands from, what is that, Battle for Zendikar?
Yeah, and that means that cards like Myriad Landscape can search this thing out, which is great. It's just a very powerful land, and I'm glad to see it reprinted.
Yeah, not Myriad Landscape because it gets only basics.
Oh, you're right, you're right.
You fetch lands, though.
Fetch lands, Any land that asks for find a forest or a plains,
The next one is another land, Gavany Township. Very powerful. It's a land that taps for a colorless or diamond mana, or you can pay 2, a green, and a white, and tap the Gavany Township, and you put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control.
Hey.
Any deck that cares about 1/1 counters is in these colors, and there are a lot of them, wants a Gavany Township. This is a really good card.
Who doesn't want to go to the Township? And I think this is also played in older formats, which is why it's sort of gotten up.
I don't know why when you said that, I just thought like, I want to go to Gavany Township and get some power converters.
Converters?
It just made me...
Bashi.
I was going to go to Touch Station and get some power converters. I don't know why. I just heard Luke say that.
All right, the last card is actually a little bit under the Sol Ring, but it's still a $4 and up card. It's a Chroma Angel of Wrath. This is, again, keyword soup. It's just 5 white for a 6/6 with flying, first strike, vigilance, trample, haste, protection from black and red.
Pretty good with Catheral.
Yeah, pretty good with Catheral. That thing will just hammer you home and kill you immediately.
Yeah, that thing is brutal if you're playing
8 mana, so you
black
want
or red.
Yeah, you want to cheat this card out more than anything else if you can help it.
So those are the kind of the high value reprints. Now let's go into our next section. We always talk about who you should run as the commander of the deck straight out of the box.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's cut and dry, sometimes it's not. I think this one is one of the ones that's not, right?
Yeah, it's definitely not. It's actually really close, and you can make an argument to go any number of different ways with this. But let's look at the most important thing, which is relating to Catheral, which is keywords. So let's look at the total number of creatures in the deck. We have 35 total creatures, which is a pretty high amount.
Yeah, really high.
27 creatures have at least one relevant keyword to Catheral. And again, those words are flying.
Okay.
Yeah, flying, first strike, double strike, death touch, hexproof, indestructible, lifelink, menace, reach, trample, and vigilance. So any of those, at least 27 cards have one of those words on them in this deck. One creature has 2 of the relevant keywords, and 5 creatures actually have 3+ relevant keywords. So cards like Achroma or Vampire Nighthawk have 3 or more. And the non-relevant keywords to Catheral that are also in the deck are Delve, Flash, and Changeling. So thank goodness Catheral can't add Changeling to a card. That would be pretty crazy.
Can't add Delve either. That would be weird, I guess.
Yeah. Now, of the 8 creatures that don't have keywords, again, 27 do, 6 of them do care about keywords in the graveyard or on the battlefield, or they have an ability that gives keywords to others. So it's definitely playing with this keyword theme pretty strongly.
So a lot of the ones that don't are sort of payoffs or rewards.
Like Audric,
for keywords.
Lunarch Marshal is one of those. And then the only 2 cards without keywords or care about keywords are Sacred Tribe Elder and Satyr Wayfinder. And those are just sort of staples for this kind of deck.
Right, one's filling your graveyard and one's a ramp card.
Yeah. All right, now looking at the deck, there are cards that say have counters matter, and that's more related to Tayam, Luminous Enigma. There are 15 cards that give counters, move counters around, or give specific keyword counters. So that also includes Catheral. There are 6 cards that self-mill you, and then there are 9 cards that recur cards from your graveyard.
It seems pretty cohesive, too. All this stuff does kind of work together, so I can see why it's possible that actually even the partner commanders could work with some of this stuff because of the counters moving and matters thing. So it's interesting.
So let's look at all of them. Now, there was when I was writing out this outline, one thing stood out to me. So Catheral's on the box and has multiple 3 CMC ramp spells to get out a 5 CMC commander early. But the thing that really stood out to me is there's only 6 sources of self-mill in the deck. And
so it's hard to actually cast Catheral on 5 and have anything in your graveyard at that point that you can...
Because turns 1, 2, and 4 are when you're going to mill stuff into the graveyard. And so being able to do that consistently with only 6 sources of self-mill isn't that great.
I think we found that a lot when playing the decks too. When either the Catheral player or if you're playing the Catheral deck, a lot of times you're like, well, I could cast Catheral. What am I going to get? 1 ability and 1/1/1 counter. Well, I don't want to do that then. I need to figure out some way to get some stuff into my graveyard. So you don't end up casting Catheral until like 8, 9, turn 10, because that's the point at which your graveyard actually has enough stuff to make it worth it. Because a 5-mana 3/3 with like let's say a 5-mana 4/4 with like flying, not that great.
Yeah, and you kind of just lose out on the fact that, like you want to do this early and have a huge impact because you want to drive. I think if you're going to play as Voltron or go Swarmy, you need to have a lot of stuff out there to use Catheral's ability for.
Yeah.
Now, so the question is it worth it to play Catheral if you're only going to get 1 to 2 keywords out of your graveyard, or is it more worth it to run a card like Tayam, who gives counters to every card you play, and it can recur 22 cards in the deck. So I count all the 3 CMC cards or less.
Oh, that's the amount of targets it has, not counting lands.
Not counting the lands, yeah. So 22 cards in the deck can get brought back by Tayam.
And we know that some of the ramp lands like Myriad Landscape, Croson Verge, Blighted Woodland, all 3 of them are sacrificable and then get back out with Tayam.
So there is a bigger argument there, I think, for that. And then Yannick and Nikara are interesting choices. You get card draw and counters. I think it's the closest, though, between Tayam and Catheral. Obviously, there are going to be a lot of cards that support Catheral because she's the lead singer of the box. But I think the deck overall has more counters matter cards than self-mill. So I'm going to choose to build around Tayam because I think it makes the 10 cards in, 10 cards out a lot easier. And you can actually make it more powerful in this direction.
I also think Tayam, when the deck is kind of not optimized, is probably a little bit more powerful in that getting your commander out, getting Tayam out, is really the first thing you want to do, first impactful thing you want to do in the game. And then after that, you want to play your other creatures to get counters on them and sort of gets the ball rolling all on its own. Whereas Catheral has a whole bunch of stuff you got to do before you play Catheral, which is harder, I think.
Yeah, and getting blown out with Catheral on the battlefield and you throw everything on him or her, it's just not, I think, where you want to be necessarily. Whereas Time gives you a lot more flexibility. And also the remove counters and Sun Titan, something I think is an incredibly powerful ability. That's what's going to give you staying power.
I mean, one of the best ways to win a game of Commander would just be to do that a couple times to get lands into play, because getting extra lands into play is just so powerful. Okay, so we're going to build around Tayam here.
Yep.
Let's talk about the best cards currently in the deck
This first
with that
one
in mind.
Whoa, they did it. We got there.
All right.
Now let's do this about 20 more times, and I think we're about to run a little closer to even in color balance.
So I believe that Gavin on Twitter recently, this is the card he was referencing, I think. He talked about creating a white ramp card. He's been doing, obviously, because a lot of people are, isolating at home. Gavin's been doing a lot of content from his house and just talking about Magic design and things like that.
Cool.
If you're not following him on Twitter, you should probably check it out. Okay, so the card is Cartographers Hawk. It's 1 and a white for a 2/1 bird with flying. When Cartographers Hawk deals combat damage to a player who controls more lands than you, return it to its owner's hand. If you do, you may search your library for a Plains card to put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library.
This
is what we're talking about.
Yeah, I don't care that it's combat damage. I don't care that you even have to bounce it to your freaking hand. At least it gets you a land on the battlefield in mono white.
It's repeatable, too. I mean, it'll get harder as you go and it bounces itself, but still, this is pretty cool design. It doesn't break the color pie, right? White still has to do what white normally does, and it also even has the restriction of they have to have more lands than you, so it's not going to be the easiest thing.
But it will most likely happen if you're playing again, cards or colors that don't give you everything you need to get ramp going.
Right, and it's a really good start, I think, for white in general. We need more cards like this, more thinking like this, which is, hey, we need ramp and we need card draw on white. How can we give it to them? And this doesn't break the color pie.
Yeah.
So I like the card a lot. I just keep doing what you're doing, Gavin, and everybody over there, Wizards. Keep thinking along these lines. We need more than just this. But this is a really good start.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's not super abusable because you need to return it to its owner's hands before searching for your library for a Plains card. So you can't hit someone and then flicker it in response to the trigger. It has to go back to your hand, I believe. The next good card in the deck, best card in the deck, is Selective Adaptation.
Oh yeah, this one's cool.
4 green for a sorcery. Reveal the top 7 cards of your library. Choose from among them a card with flying, a card with first strike, and so on for double strike, death touch, haste, hexproof, indestructible, lifelink, menace, reach, trample, and vigilance. Put one of the chosen cards onto the battlefield. The other chosen cards into your hand, and the rest into your graveyard.
Oh, this is just good on all axes. One goes directly into the battlefield.
Yep.
The other one's going to your hand. So anything with a keyword is going to at least go into your hand.
Yeah, which is great. Again, 6 mana, this could draw you up to
7 cards.
6 cards, and one goes on the battlefield.
Yeah, true. True. And then the others go into your graveyard, which is a place you want cards to be.
Yeah.
Again, especially with Tayam, you want lands in that graveyard. So yeah, this card, every time we've seen it cast when we've been playing it, it's been like, whoa, that card's good.
It's good, yeah.
It always does a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even if it's 6 mana, get 1 card out and draw a card, that's still good.
All right, the next one is also a new card from Commander Ikoria, Commander 2020. What are we calling this set? I have no idea.
C20 Ikoria.
One thing I like so far is we're talking about new cards in the best cards in the deck slot.
Yes, that's one of the best things to do, I think.
Yeah.
Thank goodness.
But a lot of decks, it's you go, what are the best cards? It's Skull Clamp and all the usual suspects. All right, it's Nesting Grounds. It's a land. You can tap it for colorless or diamond mana, or you can pay 1, tap it, and move a counter from target permanent you control onto another target permanent you control. You can only activate this ability as a sorcery.
Nice.
This is sweet. Any counter on any card you can move around.
And this used to be something that was only restricted to blue, this idea of moving counters around. This is a land that can go in any deck. It obviously synergizes super well with this deck, but very powerful. The fact that this card exists means it's the first of its kind, and it's really unique. So obviously it's going to be one of the best cards in the deck too.
Yeah, that's really cool.
All right, Netherborn Altar. It's 1 in the black for an artifact. You can tap it to put a soul counter on Netherborn Altar. Put your commander into your hand from the command zone. Then you lose 3 life for each soul counter on Netherborn Altar. Really like this card as well. So basically what this is, let's say Tayam has died 3 times. It's going to cost way too much to cast. You pay this, you tap it, and so let's say this you play the same turn you play Tayam. You tap it, that's your 2 mana commander attacks. It bounces from your command zone to your hand, and you can play it for its regular casting cost, and then you lose 3 life. Now, of course, you can move these soul counters around in this deck, but basically this is letting you surpass commander attacks every single time should you want to.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Just a way to get around. Yeah, I can pay life instead of mana, sort of. Yeah, I like that. The next card is not a new card, but it's still one of the best cards in the deck. It's Nyx Weaver. This is an innocuous card, but it's so good.
Yeah.
It's 1, a green, and a black. 3 mana total for a 2/3 spider with reach. Oh, it's also an enchantment creature. That sometimes matters. It says, at the beginning of your upkeep, put the top 2 cards of your library into your graveyard. So on your upkeep, you mill 2. And then you can pay 1, a green, and a black, and exile the Nyxweaver and return target card from your graveyard to your hand. So it'll regrow something eventually. This is just like innocuous, doesn't seem like a lot, but we'll block some stuff because Catheral might just give it Death Touch or something.
Yeah, or Tayam was going to give it Vigilance.
Yep.
You know?
It will mill you every single turn, and you want stuff in your graveyard for Catheral and other effects, just, recursive. What was there? 9 graveyard recursion spells in the deck.
Tayam, too, wants things in the graveyard.
And again, you want lands in the graveyard for Tayam or 3 CMC or lower stuff. And then eventually, when it's outclassed, you got enough stuff in your graveyard, or just somebody goes to remove it, or there's a board wipe, you just cash it in and get a card back from your graveyard. You get selective adaptation back so you can cast it again.
Yeah. And again, it's any card. This is one of the cards I like to call like headache cards, where it's like, oh, okay, fine, it's fine now. But then like turn 9 or 10, you're looking at it and you're going, well, crap, they're just going to regrow or turn the Witness back.
The amount of value that thing has gotten them by turn 10. These are some of my favorite cards in Commander in that it just doesn't meet the threshold of like your opponents feel like they have to remove that.
Yeah, but it's
so it's going to sit
good.
there. But then after 6 turns or 5 turns in play, it has gotten you, more value than, maybe an Elish Norn even would have gotten you over that time, because people are just going to be like, well, we got to kill that Elish Norn or steal it. Whereas Nyxweaver, they're like, whatever, it's little increments, but those increments add up.
And then what if the Nyxweaver got you back your Elish Norn? There you go.
Sounds exactly like something Craig would do.
Yeah, it was. Okay, we're going to get on to talking about the 10 cards we want to take out of the deck and the 10 cards we want to put in. But before we do, a quick message from our mid-roll sponsors. What's up, everybody? It's a wireless world out there, and Josh and I have been cutting the cords thanks to Raycon's wireless earbuds.
That's right, and they're about half the price of other premium wireless earbuds out there on the market, so they're a great deal, and they sound just as amazing.
Yeah, most recently, Josh and I have been spending a lot more time at home, and these Raycons have made that experience even more enjoyable. Their newest model, the Everyday E25 earbuds, provide 6 hours of playtime. They seamlessly pair with any Bluetooth device and have an even more compact design.
I use a lot of different devices when I'm working, and having the option to be mobile and free of cords has been really convenient. It's super easy with the Bluetooth pairing to switch my earbuds from my phone to my computer when I have editing to get done, and then back to my phone if I want to take a break and hang out on the couch. In fact, note to self, hang out on couch more.
Well, just yesterday, I decided to do a deep clean of the kitchen, and having wireless earbuds was so handy. No cords to get wrapped up in when you're organizing the shelves or doing the dishes, and music makes any chore way more fun.
Yeah, plus I use these all day and I didn't have to recharge them once. You really can't beat comfort and convenience with this stuff.
So if you want to get the latest and greatest from Raycon, just head on over to buyraycon.com/command and you'll get 15% off your order. That's right, 15%. Head on over to our affiliate link, buyraycon.com/command.
What are you waiting for? Get on over there, order some for yourself. You can thank us later. All right, we're back. We're talking about the ABZAN Symbiotic Swarm deck, the ability counters or just counters deck. We're into everybody's favorite portion of the upgrade video, which is where we talk about which cards we would want to add to the deck. Now, remember, our total budget is around $25 for this exercise. We're not super stringent. We might be a little over, a little under. We're not trying to hit it exactly. And
prices will change, too, between now and whenever you even watch the episode. So
yeah, but we're just not going to talk about a bunch of $20 cards. Yeah. Obviously, if you have, Demonic Tutor and stuff, put it in the deck.
Yeah. Now, a couple of notes before we get into it. The cards that can move counters from a creature to another used to only exist in blue, so like Fate Transfer or Leech Bonder. But this deck does share a lot of mechanics with the main set, and there are cards in Ikoria that will pair well with it, but we're not going to include those cards on the 10 list because we don't know their prices yet. So we're just going to have a second list after we talk about our first 10 cards that are just going to be some like, hey, these are kind of cool. Maybe you should check those out. If you are, drafting the main set and you pull on those cards, definitely throw it in there as well.
Okay, so we'll talk about the Ikoria Layer of Behemoth cards
later.
Separately. All right.
Okay. Counters matters cards. So if we're running Tayam as the commander, we obviously want cards that are going to give us a lot of counters and ways to remove a bunch of counters without having to worry about running out of them. One of my favorites is Mana Gorger Hydra, a card that just gets out of control very quickly. One that's sometimes even more important than the Planar Bridge on the battlefield, if you're a Game Knights fan. It's a 2 and a green for a 1/1 Hydra with Trample, and whenever a player casts a spell, play +1/+1 counter on Mana Gorger Hydra. Has Trample, so it's going to be a great attacker eventually, but also it's just going to grow so much in a game.
Yeah, this is great because all those counters you can cash in with Tayam for stuff in your graveyard if you want to, or you can just bash people.
Yeah, and give it Vigilance if you cast it every time. Pretty good.
That's cool.
Yeah.
The next one is, and Managorger Hydra, a little on the spendy side for our budget. It's about $5, but still within range. The next one's much cheaper, $1 for Death's Presence. 5 and a green for an enchantment. Whenever a creature you control dies, put X 1/1 counters on target creature you control, where X is the power of the creature that died. This is really good.
Yeah, typically this is just okay. It's an expensive enchantment, and it's like, great, you made a creature huge, I'll just chump block it. But those counters matter so much more with Tayam. And again, if it's a 3 CMC or less creature that died, you get to get it back with Tayam, and you just sort of keep this train going, and soon you're going to be in a surplus. Your economy of +1/+1 counters is going to be much better as a result.
Much better to be in an economic surplus.
Yeah. Now, a big thing, obviously, too, is having a sack outlet for cards like Death's Presence. So Carrion Feeder is a great example of that. It's a really cheap creature, black for a 1/1. Says Carrion Feeder can't block. However, it also says sacrifice a creature, play +1/+1 counter on Carrion Feeder.
This and Death's Presence really good, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, just moving counters around, sacking stuff, getting more counters.
Yeah, and then Time removes those counters. Carrion Feeder also collects counters when they sacrifice a card, so that's actually really powerful there too. It's, you could say like, oh, I want a Viscera Seer in this deck. It's like, no, you actually want a card closer to Carrion Feeder because I think it synergizes much better with a Tayam.
Yeah, it gets counters.
Yeah.
The next one is classic in a counters matter deck. It's Winding Constrictor, black and a green for a 2/3 snake. If one or more counters would be put on any artifact or creature you control, that many +1 of each of those kinds of counters are put on that permanent instead. And if you would get one or more counters, you get that many +1 of each of those counters instead, meaning you, the player.
Yeah.
That's not really going to happen in this deck. The interesting thing about this one is it'll synergize with Tayam's Vigilance counter.
Yeah.
You get 2 Vigilance counters, which doesn't actually make it so you tap when you attack counter to what we said earlier, but is good because Tayam wants to take counters off stuff, and this would allow you to still have some abilities after you do that, right? Or just having two Vigilances to take off to cash in for Tayam is a lot better than having one.
I mean, this is almost on the level of doubling season in a deck like this. Just doubling all of it. Now, it does not synergize with Netherborn Altar because it's going to get 2 soul counters every time you have a Winding Constrictor out, but it's so good with the rest of the deck that I think it's just worth it.
Yeah, that's cool.
Now, abusing Tayam's ability, aka the Sun Titan ability, there are some very obvious cards you should put in there. Eternal Witness is one that's just... We've seen this loop before with Sun Titans before, where you cast a Sun Titan, your Eternal Witness comes back, so you get another card. Find a way to get this Eternal Witness back in the graveyard. You can just keep doing this over and over again, and you always get this repeatable effect. Eternal Witness is really simple. It's 1 green for a 2/1, and when it enters the battlefield during your turn, target card from your graveyard to your hand.
Yeah, it gets any card too, so that's what I like about it. It sort of turns Sun Titan, so Tayam, into something that will get you any card you want rather than only the 3 CMC or less stuff, because Eternal Witness comes back on the battlefield and you're like, oh, I want Selective Adaptation. Cool, I got that in my hand now, whereas Tayam by itself couldn't get you that card.
Yeah.
The next one is Animate Dead. It's an enchantment aura. Oh boy. All right, here we go. It's a lot simpler than it's about to sound, okay? It's 1 and a black for an enchantment. You enchant creature card in a graveyard. When Animate Dead enters a battlefield, if it's on the battlefield, it loses enchant creature in a graveyard and gains enchant creature put onto the battlefield with Animate Dead. Return enchanted creature card to the battlefield under your control and attach Animate Dead to it. When Animate Dead leaves the battlefield, that creature's controller sacrifices it. Enchanted creature gets -1, -0. Okay, listen. It's because there's no way to enchant a card in your graveyard. The rules just don't really have a good way to handle that. But basically, you're regrowing, you're putting a card from your graveyard onto the battlefield. Enchantment, Animate Dead as an enchantment is the thing that's holding it there. So if it leaves the graveyard, then the creature goes back to the graveyard. And then the creature gets -1 power for some reason because they wanted to make it more complicated.
Yeah, and if you read the old text for this, you will be doubly confused. Basically, you cast this card, you get a creature back, it gets -1, -0. If you lose the enchantment, you lose the creature as well. Most importantly, it's a 2 CMC spell.
So it gets basically this says, get any creature out of your graveyard. We don't care what the CMC is anymore because you just get it with this Oh, aura. Yeah, I like that a lot.
Tayam brings back the enchantment aura, and then you can fetch any card out of your graveyard.
You can get a chroma, no protection from black.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, no, maybe not chroma. Next is Fauna Shaman, 1 in the green for a creature elf shaman 2/2. We saw this have great effect in the last Game Nights episode. You can pay a green and tap it to discard a creature card and search your library for a creature card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. Again, this works well with Catheral, but more importantly, works well with Tayam. You drop something in there that's 3 CMC or less, you can get it back, and you also fetch any card out of your deck. There are many great targets for the creatures you can grab here. Obviously, I think Eternal Witness is the one that we mentioned already that is just going to be great.
The great thing about Fauna Shaman and its way more expensive counterpart, Survival of the Fittest, is it goes and finds you the creature you need right now.
Yeah.
So you're just looking at, do you really want just only access to the creatures in your hand, or do you want access to all creatures in your deck? I'd go for all creatures in your deck. That's probably going to be a little bit better.
Yeah, catch that Wayfinder in for something much scarier.
Yeah.
Next is a series of cards, and I took a lot of inspiration from Carador decks because they're constantly recasting things out of the graveyard. It's like, well, what if you're constantly Sun Tightening things out of the graveyard? The Plague Crafter / Merciless Executioner / Fleshbag Marauder are all 3 mana cards that when they enter the battlefield, each player sacrifices a creature, and Plague Crafter says, or Planeswalker. But usually you play this, you sacrifice the creature itself, and everyone else loses a creature. Tayam, if you're getting these cards back once a turn, even multiple times a turn, you will shut down the whole board.
If you want to never lose to a Voltron deck, just play all 3 of these cards.
Yeah, exactly.
And the next is also a grouping of cards. It's the O-Ring effect. So there's Oblivion Ring, Banishing Light, and Grasp of Fate is the sort of more expensive one.
The best of all of them, yeah.
Yeah. I'll read Grasp of Fate. It's 1 white for an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, for each opponent, exile up to 1 target non-land permanent that player controls until Grasp of Fate leaves the battlefield, and then those permanents return to their owner's control. Oblivion Ring and Banishing Light each do singular targets. Grasp of Fate does 1 from each of your opponents, but they're enchantments that basically remove stuff until the enchantment itself is gone. I kind of think of it like that prison that Zod gets stuck in.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's like exiled off in this thing. And then, but if you ever break that weird glass thing, Zod comes out. I'm talking about the original Superman, not the movies, not the newer one.
Isn't it similar to Ugin and they had some sort of vault of types?
Yeah.
And if you break it, here come the Eldrazi again.
Yeah.
So similar things. Again, these are all 3 CMC or less, and people are going to want to remove your O-Ring / Grasp of Fates.
Grasp of Fate is great if you can recur it.
Yeah, it's like, well, too bad. It's coming right back, and now I can choose better targets than I did before. So very, very powerful there. Now, Proliferate is something that is obviously going to be very powerful in this deck, too. You have counters running around all over the place. And fortunately for us, Proliferate has been a mechanic that has been sort of brought back by Wizards recently.
Yeah, Warden Spark.
In the colors that we want it to be in. So Evolution Sage, this card is perfect with Tayam. It's a 3/2 for 2 and a green, so RU3 CMC or less. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, Proliferate. So Proliferate is choose any number of permanents and or players, then give each another counter of each kind already there. So it doubles all the counters on your stuff, including your vigilance counters that you get from Tayam. And Tayam also can bring back lands, which means it's going to doubly affect the fact that you can get Evolution Sage, play a land, get a land back with Tayam, boom, counters everywhere, use it again, go nuts.
Really awesome.
Yeah,
that's a great card.
And then there's also Karn's Bastion, which is a land that proliferates, and Pollenbright Druid, which is, I think, potentially, if you put this in, could be one of the best 2-drops in the deck. It can put a +1/+1 counter on a target creature when it enters, or it just proliferates.
Yeah, so good, because
I love commons that just blow out the power level.
Yeah, I love, it's like Nyx Weaver kind of, where it's like, it's low CMC, it doesn't seem like a huge impact, but this is a good play early, and it's a good play late.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is exactly the kind of card you want in this deck.
And 17 cents.
Yeah, exactly.
Also a thing. Mitch would be so proud. All right, let's talk about the honorable mentions. So
this first one we put in there, it is within the budget range, but it's one of the meanest things I think you can do with Tayam.
Oh, yeah, because you can recur it. So it's Pernicious Deed. It's 1, a black and a green for an enchantment. You pay X, you sacrifice Pernicious Deed, and then you destroy each artifact, creature, and enchantment with converted mana cost X or less. Rough. So this is a recurable board wipe with Tayam.
If you just do it for 3, it gets rid of itself, and then you can just... Well, you sacrifice it anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
If you do it for 3, you can get it back, and Tayam stays alive. So
you can even do it for more, and just also, while the trigger's on the stack, use Tayam, because sacrifice is part of the cost, right? So it'll be in there.
Yeah.
And get it back. I believe that'll work.
No, you're right. It is part of the cost. It gets sacrificed, and then the
trigger's on the stack. And then you're like, okay, before everything is blown up, I'll activate Tayam. And then so Tiam's going to die, yeah, but I have Pernicious Steed in my hand back again. What are you going to do?
Quick way to make everyone hate you a lot. Actually, there's a lot of ways for everyone to hate you in this deck. And the other honorable mention is one that I recommend no one do. It's Strip Mine / Wasteland plus cards like Ramonep Excavator / Crucible of Worlds.
Or even Tiam can just do it, right? Because you sacrifice Strip Mine, blow up somebody's land, pay 3, remove 3 counters, get Strip Mine back into play.
And every single one of these cards is 3 CMC or less, which means Tiam just loves all of them. But don't do that. And it's also expensive, so put your money towards something more fun.
I think Strip Mine without Crucible and Ramonep Excavator is probably okay, because Tiam, you're having to pay 3 mana.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to just blow up everybody's lands, but you can definitely get rid of a key land and then do that again later.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to
go nuts. You don't have to do
I think Strip Mine is fine. If you put in the full package, Wasteland, Ramonep, and Crucible, now, well, I mean, that's fine too, as long as your opponents know that's what you're doing.
This is fine. Everything is fine.
It's fine if you're playing against Kyle Hill, basically.
Yeah. Sorry, Kyle. One more dig at you, buddy. Okay, let's talk about some of the cool cards from Ikoria. This first one is one I think definitely would.
This is from the main set stuff?
Yeah, this is from the main set. So this is the Ozolith. It's 1 mana for a legendary artifact. Whenever a creature you control leaves the battlefield, if it had counters on it, put those counters on the Ozolith. Ooh, interesting. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if the Ozolith has counters on it, you may move all the counters from the Ozolith onto target creature.
Oh, wow. And this is an artifact, so if they destroy all creatures, you kind of get to keep all your enhancements.
Yeah, and Catheral obviously loves this card. Tiam loves this card because the vigilance counters will always be going on it, and you can just sort of pass those around.
You can get a creature with 12 times vigilance on it. Is it tapped or untapped? I don't know.
Yeah, it's odd or even. You have to add it up. You're like, all right, guys, let me count the vigilance counters. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, it taps.
Great with Tiam, obviously, because you get to save your counters. Yeah, that's awesome.
I mean, the one way to really mess this deck up is you have all your counters on these things. I'll get rid of them, but the Ozolith
just board wipe
keeps them around. Yeah,
that's cool. The next one is Keen Sight Mentor. It's 2 and a white for a 1/4 creature, human cleric. It says, when Keen Sight Mentor enters the battlefield, put a vigilance counter on target non-human creature you control. And then you can pay 1 and a white and tap it to put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control with vigilance.
Wow.
So there's a note here. There's a cycle of mentors.
So the white one is vigilance, the green adds trample, and the black cares about lifelink.
But this is cool because most of your creatures should have vigilance because Tiam is giving it to them when they come out. So this is a way to just 1/1 counter everything. If you got Winding Constrictor or something, that can get out of hand pretty fast.
Yeah, it's kind of like Gavney Township for your vigilance creatures.
Yeah, very cool.
But cheaper. Fronland Felidar, 2 green and a white for a 3/5 creature cat beast, has vigilance, and creatures you control with vigilance have pay a mana, tap target creature.
Oh, they all become tappers.
Yeah. Oh.
That would make Craig so sad.
Yeah. When I was looking through the set, I was like, okay, Tiam has to be the commander here because look at all of these. These 2 cards are perfect synergies with it.
Yeah, that's an underrated power to have because any really big scary threat, you're like, okay, I can take care of that for 1 mana. They just can't attack with it.
Yep.
Blightsteel Colossus, don't care.
See ya.
Yeah. All right, the next one is Luminous Broodmoth.
Mothra.
This is a cool one a lot of people are talking about. So this is the Mothra card. If you didn't see the previews, there are Godzilla, Ghidorah, Mothra versions of certain cards in the deck. So if you have a Mothra, it's a Luminous Broodmoth. Or you can have the Luminous Broodmoth version, but I would suggest the Mothra version.
Yeah, okay. Pretty cool.
It's 2 white for a 3/4 creature insect, has flying, and it says, whenever a creature you control without flying dies, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control with a flying counter on it.
Whoa. So if it dies again, use Tiam to take the counter off, and guess what? Comes right back.
Yeah, that's interesting. I know there's some combos people are talking about with Solemnity because it doesn't allow counters to be put on. So you can basically find any creature and just sacrifice it over and over again because Mothra just keeps bringing it back. So if it's Sun Titan or something like that, it'll just ETB.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty cool card, though. It is mythic, so this is probably going to be, I would assume, one of the pricier cards in the set. It's got a very high power level on it.
Definitely the Mothra versions will be too.
Yeah. Next up is Vivien, Monster's Advocate. It's one of the new Planeswalkers. It's 3 green for a 3 loyalty Planeswalker. It has a static ability, like the newest Planeswalkers we've seen recently. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may cast creature spells from the top of your library, so that's pretty good. And then the +1 is create a 3/3 green beast creature token and put your choice of a vigilance counter, a reach counter or a trample counter on it.
That's cool.
And then the -2, which again, you can do the moment you play this commander, or this Planeswalker. When you cast your next creature spell this turn, search your library for a creature card with lesser converted mana cost. Put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library.
Wow.
Wow.
So you're like, okay, this turn I'm going to cast an 8-drop, and I can go find 7 or less and just put it on. I get wow.
And it creates a blocker, which is one of the most important things. Not only does it create a blocker, but it creates a blocker with a counter on it, so Tayam likes it too.
The static ability is super good on this card too. It's just card advantage.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow, that's a really good Planeswalker.
Yeah, I think it's one of the best Viviens ever printed.
All right, the next one is Nethroi, Apex of Death. It's 2 white, black, green for a 5/5 legendary creature. It's a cat nightmare beast. It has mutate for 4...
A hybrid
white-green and 2 black. So 7 mana for its mutate. Should we say what mutate it is again? You can cast it for its mutate cost, and then you attach it to a non-human creature, and then it gets the abilities of both cards, but the power and toughness of only one of them, depending on which card you put on top. All right. It has Death Touch and Lifelink. It's pretty good. Whenever this creature mutates, return any number of target creature cards with total power 10 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield.
What? If you load up with 3 CMC cards, this is just a 7 mana get 3 more cards onto the battlefield.
Wow.
And you could potentially get 4, maybe even 5, like a Pollen Bright Druid, a Nyx Weaver, and there's
and
lots.
It's good with Catheral and everything too, because it has Death Touch and Lifelink. So if it's sitting in your graveyard, it's going to do some work. Also, just a 5 mana 5/5 Death Touch Lifelink is pretty good.
Yeah, you can even get some Eldrazi back with this because it's total power 10 or less. It could just be 1 card, right? So this is, again, very, very powerful, and it's going to probably, again, be one of the pricier cards in the set because of the power levels up there. All right, the final one is Death's Oasis. It's white, black, green for an enchantment. Whenever a non-token creature you control dies, put the top 2 cards of your library into your graveyard. Hey. Then return a creature card with lesser converted mana cost than the creature that died from your graveyard to your hand.
Oh.
And you can pay 1 to sacrifice it, and you gain life equal to the greatest converted mana cost among creatures you control.
It's got the feel of a scrap trawler a little bit.
Yeah.
Which is an extremely powerful card. Obviously, that one works a little different, but this harkens to that, I'd say.
On an enchantment.
Yeah.
So pretty good. So there's a lot of really interesting cards to add in for Mycoria here. I would just suggest you look through, and there's also lots of cards that add ability counters if you're looking to do a more budget version. These are obviously the flashiest ones that we found in there, so we thought they'd be pretty fun to talk about.
All right, let's talk about the cards we want to take out, because if you're going to add all these cards in, you're going to have to take out a bunch.
Yes, and a lot of these also we're taking out because Catheral is no longer the lead singer.
Right. So. Since we're building around Tayam, some of these cards don't make as much sense anymore. The first 4 we're going to talk about are the 4 we're taking out of every deck. Well, not every deck has 4 of them, but
if they're in the deck, we're taking them out.
So the Bonder's Ornament is in every deck. It's the 3 mana artifact that taps for a mana of any color, and then you can pay 4 and tap it, and each player who controls a permanent named Bonder's Ornament draws a card. Self-explanatory, not that great. And then the Impetus Cycle. These are the auras enchantments that have goad the creature you enchant and then give some other sort of ability to it. Ostensibly, so you have the choice to either put it on your own creature or put it on an opponent's. But in general, like, these just don't go along with any of the main strategies that these decks are doing. So most of them want to take them out.
They're like the cool new cards in the set that may find a house somewhere else.
Yeah.
All right, the other cards that we're getting rid of, the first one is actually in a cycle that we do consider to be very powerful, but I just believe this is the weakest of all of them.
I'm surprised. Well, let's talk about it.
You might still like. For me, there's between this and another card. So it's Obscuring Haze, 2 green for an instant. If you control a commander, you may cast this spell without paying its mana cost. And it's prevent all damage that would be dealt this turn by creatures your opponents control. So it's actually a better fog because you could attack into someone and cast this, and their creatures won't deal yours damage, but yours will deal theirs. Or it's just a free fog effect on your turn. Yeah, someone else's turn too.
Yeah, I think fog effects are underrated in Commander and will often save your bacon in spots where like nothing else will. And the fact that it's a free fog is a lot. And then this has slightly additional upside, you're right, in that your creatures will still deal damage. So you can blow somebody out in combat. I don't know. I like this card quite a bit. I would probably try and keep it in.
Yeah, I just would rather run the Spore Frog that I can recur with Tayam.
Yeah, I think Spore Frog's also really, really good. But Spore Frog's on the battlefield, you can see it.
True. And you can't cast it for 0 mana.
Right.
All right, the next card is Aerial Responder, and it's similar to Vampire Nighthawk. These are just 1 black or 1 white for a creature. The Responder has Flying Vigilance lifelink, and the Nighthawk has Flying Death Touch lifelink. Now, these cards would be great if Catheral was the lead singer, but Catheral is not. And the same goes for a Chroma as well. We're also removing that. It's just a very expensive card for a lot of keyword soup, and we're not trying to do that necessarily in the deck.
Yep.
And then this is a card that we all love to see in the Precon environment.
In the Precon environment, this card wrecks. In the wider world of Commander, it's very, very meh and too expensive. It's a Talpa, Primal Dawn. 6 white for a 4/8 legendary creature, Elder Dinosaur. It has flying, double strike, vigilance, trample, and indestructible. In the Precon environment, this hits the table. There aren't that many answers to it, and so it tends to just kind of run amok. Or everybody copies it, and there's a bunch of them running around. It tends to happen a lot. In the wider world of Commander, people are aware of the fact that indestructible and things are going to exist. They have a lot of exile effects, and stuff like that, and Zatulpa doesn't do much.
So unless you're cheating it out, not really.
Really, the most useful part of this card is to get it into your graveyard, and then you use it with Catheral. But if you're not running Catheral as a commander, you don't even really want to do that, so I would totally take it out.
And the last card I would remove is Soul Flare. It's 4 black for a creature demon. That's a 4/4 with Delve. So each card you exile from your graveyard while casting the spell pays for 1 of its mana. So this could, at its cheapest, be black. If a creature with a card with flying was exiled with Soul Flare's Delve ability, Soul Flare has flying. And the same is true for First Strike, Double Strike, Death Touch, Haste, Hexproof, Indestructible, Lifelink, Reach, Trample, and Vigilance. So this is basically getting rid of cards in your graveyard to create a very powerful Soul Flare. Obviously, with Catheral, this is the kind of card they'd be like, oh, cool, yeah, you can make the Soul Flare super huge. But it kind of kills the point of tie-in because you're getting rid of the cards that you want to recur. So it's just a bit of a non-bo.
Yeah, when I play the deck, I had Soul Flare in my hand. I remember most of the game thinking, like, I don't want to cast this.
Yeah, it just is going to take away.
It's so awkward.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it actually hurts me more than it helps me, probably. And so, yeah, I really don't want cards in my hand ever that I'm not happy to cast. Yeah.
Well, now that we're here, let's talk about how the deck does play. Now, we've only run the deck with Catheral in our test games with each other. And it's sort of like what Josh said. Sometimes it just gets a little awkward when you're like, I can cast my commander, but doing so does nothing for me. My graveyard has 0 cards in it.
But there are times when later in the game, some stuff's gone down. If you manage to get a mill engine going, Catheral seems insane because sometimes people play it and you're like, you get what? Okay, so I get first strike on this, indestructible on that, double strike on this, trample on it. This thing has flying. Catheral gets 7/1/1 counters, and you're like, oh my God, what the heck just happened?
Yeah, your Zatulpa is actually the scariest thing in the world right now.
Oh yeah, we saw Zatulpas that were just like insanity. Plus it can get a lot of 1/1 counters onto something like a Zatulpa because of other effects in the deck. So it can do stuff, but it's kind of like high variance. Some decks, some games it would seem to do not much at all, and then some games it's like, that's crazy.
Yeah, and not to mention if you're playing in the wide world of Commander, there's going to be a lot of board wipes around, and Catheral is very, very fragile to that. And recasting a 5-drop Commander to cost 7 mana the next time, that's going to be most of your turn. So I think that's, in general, Catheral, like you said, high variance is a great way to put it in.
Yeah, so you might also think about putting in some stuff that protects against board wipes. Might be a good idea too. All right, to the listeners, what do you think of this ABZAN deck? What cards did we miss? Would you agree with us? Would you run Tayam as the commander out of the box, or do you think it's better to go with Catheral? If you did go with Catheral, are there some cool cards that you think of that maybe we didn't think of that cause you to want to run Catheral? Like, one of the things that's tough is ability counters haven't existed before. Yeah. And in the history of Magic, there's not a lot of cards that just generically mess around with counters. Yeah. But so it's possible we just missed some cards. Put it in the comments if you came up with something cool.
This could be a hidden Skullbriar deck where you just play Catheral and load Skullbriar up and then just find ways to keep recurring it from every zone.
Sure.
Just hope it doesn't get exiled.
You start doing that, it's just going to path it.
Oh no, my hidden Skullbriar deck.
All right, if you want to pick up this deck or any of the Precon decks or any of the cards from the main set or sealed product from the main set, anything at all, just go to cardkingdom.com/commandzone. When you use our affiliate link, you really are supporting all of our content. This show, game nights, everything we're doing here. We got a lot of bonus content coming out because of all the sets that are coming out this month. And so your support really does allow us to do all that.
Yeah. And of course, UltraPro too, one of the sponsors of the show. Both of these companies are, tirelessly working to make sure that they can still keep things going in this difficult time period. So your support means more than it ever has. And again, like Josh said earlier, if you can't support UltraPro or Card Kingdom or us right now, you can follow them on Twitter and Instagram. You can send a message, right? Even just seeing positive words on my Twitter feed makes my day so much better, even if things aren't looking great. In other aspects, I know that you left a positive comment somewhere, or you subscribed and follow us, or you tagged us in the post and you asked the question and kept the conversation going, because that is what I think is the most important part about this whole isolation thing. Is just we are able to still talk to each other. So let's use the resources we have available to us, whatever they may be.
Yeah, very, very cool. Okay, we're not going to do the end step like we have it on these other upgrade videos because we're doing so many and we don't have that many cool things going on, especially right now. You know,
use Netflix.
Yeah,
watch something on Netflix.
Tiger King.
I don't know if I give a thumbs up to the events that happened at Tiger King.
Listen, I'm not giving a thumbs up to the Tiger
There you go.
King. I'm giving a thumbs up to the documentary about the Tiger King.
Pretty crazy stuff.
Yeah, check that out on Netflix. Okay. Yeah. Big shout out to our editing, graphics, and logistics team, which is Craig Blanchett, Ashlyn Rose, Lady Danger, Manson Lung, Alfred Estaka, Josh Murphy, Jake Boss, and Sam Waldo.
And as always, big thanks to Geoffrey Palmer, who does the living card animations that start and end our show on YouTube, as well as live behind us on set and on game nights. You can find him on Twitter at livingcardsmtg.
All right, everybody. If I'm correct, this will be the 5th and final of these upgrade videos for the Precons. Next, we'll be starting to tackle the various set reviews. We're going to look at the new legendary creatures. We're going to look at the cards that go in your 99. We're going to look at both the Commander product and the main set.
Oh, boy.
So we've got a lot coming up. If you haven't hit that notification button if you haven't subscribed, and then I always want them to hit the notification and then subscribe, but it won't work that way. Subscribe and then hit the notification bell. We still have a ton of content on the way.
You don't want to miss it. We're going to have all the spicy tech. Good stuff.
All of it.
All of it.
We won't miss any of it.
Oh, boy. We'll try our best.
All right, everybody. Thanks for watching.
We'll see you next time.
Peace.
Thank you for your attention. For further inquiries, send an email to commandcast@rocketjump.com or ask us on Twitter @JFWong and @JoshLeeQuai. See you later, alligator.
Greetings, humans.